fucking awesome. Come on, it's gonna be fucking awesome. You know the words. It's gonna be fucking awesome. That's it, see. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Yeah!
What up, my coolest geeks? How you doing? It's me, Jesse Blaze Snider, the Coolest Geek Alive. What's going on? Of course, that's my pledge to you, to be Johnny on the spot, the man with the plan, who knows how to get out of this fucking muck that we're in right now in geek culture. And it is a muck. I've been talking about it for a while, about how the merchandising sales tell all in in comics, and what's really going on in films, and what's really going on in books, and what's really going on across the board. The reason why Bob Iger bought Star Wars and bought Marvel is because they were both merchandising juggernauts. And there's a big announcement of Hasbro and the toy layoffs, 1,100 employees, on the back of just having fired earlier in the year 800 employees, something like 25% of their overall staff this year. And when you look at the properties that Hasbro has to offer, it's Disney. It's Disney. And I have to thank my buddies at World Class Bullshitters on YouTube for kind of crystallizing this, as they did a little retrospective a couple days ago on their channel. They do these great little walks down to Ollie's and these other stores that are these discount stores in the Midwest that I have my buddy Doc, shout out to you, Doc. Doc is sending me fucking, Doc is a commentator on Wes's channel, Thinking Critical, another buddy of mine on YouTube. I have a lot of friends on YouTube, in the YouTube world. Where I get a lot of my information, keep up on a lot of my information, and I'd recommend. I'll tell you who I listen to. I'll tell you who I pay attention. But it's really about what you're paying attention to, and then also having personal experience in the business, being a publisher, being a writer, being somebody in the entertainment business who makes media, who does all this stuff. I understand, what I'm looking at here. So let's see. I'm just going to get into my notes here, and we will take it from there, because I have a lot of fucking things to say about this whole thing. Is Disney and Bob Iger to blame? How? Well, let's see. Hasbro Toys laid off 1,100 employees. 20% of its workforce, probably 25% with the 800 employees earlier this year. Shout out to World Class Bullshitters again for their great toy videos where they go down the aisles at these discount toys and you see the stacks and stacks of Hasbro toys. Hasbro in particular. And you'll see why in a second. What is it that Hasbro has? Some properties that Hasbro has? Well, it's got Marvel, and it's got Black Panther, which is sitting on the shelves, and Ant-Man, which is sitting on the shelves in these discount shelves, and the Eternals, which is sitting on the shelves, and Black Widow, etc. Star Wars, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, sitting on the shelves. We got Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones. They just did a big toy line for Indiana Jones, and that stuff is sitting on the shelf. Additionally, Hasbro has G.I. Joe, which they've done a big push into the 6-inch, which I've been super interested in getting my hands on these 6-inch toys, but they have not seemed to do so well generally, or at least not most of them aren't doing so well. They also have Transformers, which always seems to be doing pretty good. Oh, bless me. Magic the Gathering, Power Rangers, which hasn't seemed to be doing great of late. NBA line, which I don't think did very well, and I have the hiccups or something like that. And D&D figures, which also did not do very well. But meanwhile, don't think this is just Hasbro. Mattel, they got the Barbie line, and they're doing great off the back of that Barbie movie. So is McFarlane with DC, even though DC's been tanking with the films. He hasn't been too focused on making toys from the films. He's been more focused on making toys from the classic iterations in the comics, and even more iterations in the comics of Batman that are recent and kind of cool looking and stuff. Todd McFarlane understands something that toy people understand. A cool toy will always sell. Something that's really genuinely fucking cool, it's going to sell. And Marvel and DC have tons of cool things like that, where if they were a little bit more geared towards what do we have that's really cool looking, I think their toys would sell better. But they don't exactly do that. They'll stick to the classic stuff. And occasionally we get some of these deep dive stuff that look cool. But the look cool stuff always will do generally well. I really believe. It's clear to me as your resident toy guy. I mean, anyway, let's see. Why you should feel bad for Hasbro. Okay, so I've worked on licensed comic books. I've watched friends work on lots of licensed things, and licensing is interesting. If you don't know what licensing is, that's essentially when a company gets other companies to pay them to make products based on their stuff. Classically, Disney has had a video game company or two at times, and they're like, there's no reason for this. We don't need a video game company. Now they're thinking about buying one, but they just let everybody else license the stuff to them. Licensing is really tricky because it puts so much of the risk on the people who are licensing. People are fighting for these licenses, especially a license like Disney. I've watched the Disney license be fought over for a while. So Mattel is bidding on this license against Hasbro every few years, and Hasbro has to come to the table and explain to Disney why they should do it, and not any of these other toy companies. And McFarlane Toys has made a little Disney thing here or there, and sometimes they'll do multiple deals with multiple people. Oftentimes it'll be exclusive or largely exclusive. I mean, Disney's such a huge property at this point in time. Disney Animation, Disney Princesses, Disney Pixar, the Muppets, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, all the Marvel properties, etc. So I mean, you really just have so many different things to think about when you're thinking about the Disney property. So often I think it's being sold off in little pieces nowadays. But anyway, Hasbro really has to put themselves on the line to get that license, to maintain that license, to maintain their relationship with the licensor, to keep the licensor happy. And the word from toy people inside the industry, and I'm a professional who works in the entertainment industry, but I'm also essentially a professional toy guy. I've even dabbled with going into the toy business. I produced a comic book for Four Horsemen Studios, who are the makers, some of the biggest sculptors who ever worked for for McFarlane Toys when they were coming up. And if you're a toy person or appreciate some of the McFarlane Toys from back in the day, that's largely Four Horsemen Studios. So I have a lot of ties into this world, and I know a lot of these people. And the word has been that you could there's a lot of things that the toy company, the toy people know aren't ideal toys to put onto the market. Case in point, anything, and I'm sure I have this in my notes, so I'll probably overlap some of this stuff. But there's a story that I wrote in Toy Story, the Return of Buzz Lightyear, which was the first arc of the Toy Story comics that I wrote for Boom Studios back in the day, and ultimately you meet this, I think it was Ambassador Buzz, and the whole joke there was that nobody wanted to buy a figure who was an ambassador. And nobody wants to buy certain toys. There's a classic example of Admiral Holdo, who was in the first waves of the Last Jedi figures. And I believe that was, and this is rumor, speculation, but I mean, the toy company should have known nobody wants to buy an ambassador figure. And now there are stacks of Admiral Holdo action figures at these Ollie stores and these other discount stores that nobody wants, no matter how low they get marked down. This kind of forcing the ESG score, diversity sort of thing amongst the products that you're selling, when your product makers are aware of certain things that people want and people don't want. There was always a overcorrection on, people don't want women and people don't want ethnically diverse characters. We see that that's not true. People love a great Black Widow figure. We'll take a really cool Scarlet Witch. We'll take a really cool Black Panther or a really great Luke Cage. There are things that do sell. But not just anyone, not just, there are characters that we either haven't identified with. There are characters that are ambassadors or something boring. There are love interests and other things. Those characters, there's a reason why Mary Jane usually comes in a 2-pack with Spider-Man, because Mary Jane by herself doesn't tend to sell very good. And the toy makers are aware of this. But we've got definitely a lot of Mary Janes being sold in the Marvel Legends line and in the Star Wars line and in the Buzz Lightyear line. Well, I mean, even the Buzz Lightyears didn't sell in the Lightyear movie from the realistic movie. Nobody seemed to like that. Say what you will, collect the numbers of who saw it. The toys are stacked up at these Ollie's places. And again, shout out to World Class Bullshitters. You can go check out some of the coverage that they have maintained coverage over the years as they see these toys that were literally came out, 5 years ago are still here in the cutout bins. They can't get rid of them. It's pretty crazy. And maybe I'm exaggerating 5 years, but definitely within like 4 years, I guess, of like all these like properties of the Last Bunch, Wakanda Forever, Eternals, Last Jedi, Lightyear, Elementals, the recent Guardians of the Galaxy stuff. There's so much. There's another funny story about Disney's decision to not allow Ula's the Slave Girl be made into an action figure. I think that's her name, Ula. She's like the alien slave girl from the Jabba the Hutt thing, and she's basically a toy that fans have really been clamoring for. It was for the fan fundraiser for the Rancor, a giant Rancor for the 6-inch line, and the Ula figure was something that everybody wanted. And the trickle-down word from the inside was it wasn't the toy people. They really wanted to offer that figure, but Disney wouldn't allow them to offer a prostitute, or a slave girl, whatever. So, I mean, these sorts of decisions, I mean, it seems like minor. I'm just mentioning these like two things, but it's legion. This is the sort of decision-making that's being made. And the cumulative effect of a thing, that's it. Is like the people who are really inside it on the left, they don't see that it's a cumulative effect. They're like, what? I just trans this one character. What? I just turned this other character this. Like, what? My book just has this one gay kiss. Like, it's not about the one. It's about the cumulative effect that creates an inorganic pattern that basically like sets off the alarms for your viewing audience. People who are looking to escape are being distracted by this obvious pattern. And then this obviously bad pattern, you can see it's a bad pattern by what it has done to the merchandising sales. So let's see what I write here. Also, Disney's been enforcing diversity in the toy line and actually making Hasbro produce some toys that they basically know are not going to do well. But they're hoping the leads and other choices they make can compensate for the leading characters and other choices they make can compensate for the past decade. This has been leading to stacks of various toys like Rose Tico, Admiral Holdo, and everyone from Solo: A Star Wars Story, all Eternals, and all the leading ladies of Wakanda Forever to stack up at discount retailers like Ollie's, where they sit unwanted, even at majorly discounted prices. There's a line of X-Men Age of Apocalypse toys that got sucked into this while I was shouting out the Doc from Thinking Critical. Doc got me a whole wave for like super discounted. It was like $10 for toys that are usually probably like 30. I don't know. For these Age of Apocalypse toys are great. Normally, I think this wave probably would have done better. But I think it came out at a bad time, sort of in between some waves that people really didn't care about, and it sat, and now they're available in Ollie's. Even something that I would have said would have probably largely been safe last time, and I was hoping for more of these Age of Apocalypse figures, and now I'm like, all right, probably not going to get any more of those. Anyway, what did we write here? We said a character like Admiral Holdo would never have been made by Hasbro unless The Last Jedi had done phenomenally, and they started digging into really deep dive characters because people love the movie that much. That's when they would have broken out a character like Admiral Holdo. And she'd not have made it into the first wave of figures because as I made it into a joke in my new comic, Wink Wink Toy Story comics that wrote back in the day, I talked about that already. Let's see. Shout out to Aaron Sparrow working with me on the Toy Story stuff back in the day. He was my editor. Where I have a variant Buzz Lightyear, blah, blah, blah. Nobody wants to play with an ambassador action figure. What is she going to do? Write a memo? Of course, the shit is sitting there. The amount of toys they have had put out in the past 10 years that I would call odd choices for toys is about 1,000 strong at this point. And it's funny because there are things that we are interested in, and generally those things still sell. And I mean, man, the output of toys and merch has been insane over the past bunch of years, but also insane in how much of it is unsellable junk. Classic anything, Marvel, Pixar, MCU, Star Wars is really dying though. Oh, I was saying, the classic anything generally still sells, for Marvel and even, the Star Wars is really, it is dying. Some things, but they've bucked it up, classic Disney stuff. And I think, that stuff's still generally kind of hanging in there, but obviously it's being affected by these things. It's being affected. There's good stuff that's ending up in all these places and whatnot. So let's see. Generally speaking, overall, it is simply all the new stuff. They have not had a merchandising hit since Spider-Man No Way Home, and that was a shared production with Sony. They've not had a single hit that has translated into merchandise. There's maybe a little for Encanto. I mean, they didn't really put out a lot for Encanto merchandise-wise. Nothing crazy. Lightyear tanked Toy Story's momentum quite a bit. Baby Yoda has worn out his welcome as the promise of him growing into a Jedi is now gone. And Mando Season 3 killed interest in the one thing that was working for them. Andor doesn't sell toys, even though it's a good show. I like that show. I'll be watching the second season, but I'm pretty much done with Star Wars myself as well. I haven't watched anything in the past. I gave up on Obi-Wan after being really pissed about Boba Fett, and I was just bored and didn't really dig Boba Fett. And I enjoyed Obi-Wan watching commentary on it more than I enjoyed watching the episodes I watched. So I switched to just doing that, and I did the same thing with Ahsoka because I was freaking done with it. And my most hardcore Star Wars friends have been done with it for years now. The most hardcore Star Wars people left long ago. I think it was us new Star Wars fans who were keeping it alive. It's, oh my God, what a world I'm living in. It's crazy. They killed it. I always think of it in terms with Disney, in terms of that South Park episode where they're giving their money to the bank and they're and it's gone. And it's it's Disney, we got the Muppets and it's dead. Hey, Disney, we got Star Wars and it's dead. Hey, Disney, we got Marvel, etc., etc., and fucking etc. This fucking company, and it's dead. It's dead. Indiana Jones, and it's dead. Whole classic line is on clearance. They've got a 6-inch action figure line. They tried to do a big push. It is on clearance. Every Marvel movie, TV line of the past year has tanked, or mostly, majorly mostly, depending on the characters. Some things still will sell, and in a line of mixed characters. If you're doing movie characters from the Infinity Saga or whatever, there's going to be some that don't exactly sell. But the lines of characters, even Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 figures are now on clearance at Ollie's. And, maybe those ones and some of the ones from this year have a chance to get picked up by toy collectors and people who might be interested in using them using them for parts if they're cheap enough. That's what people like me and my friend Aaron do. We go and we buy toys and we're like, oh, this is a great suit. I can repaint this a different way. Like, so toys that get bought in this way, it's not even all like, oh, well, people wanted to buy it, which is a little expensive. Like, nah, because a big chunk of this is people who are literally going there like, I sent a friend there to buy me the Age of Apocalypse line, and thank you to Doc for buying me the Age of Apocalypse. He won't let me pay him for him, which is ridiculous, but it's so freaking sweet. I've got this whole freaking build a Colossus, and I have the head of the Colossus, but it's at my apartment in California, so I have to have my girlfriend send it to me so I can. Oh man, I'm so excited, so excited to get the. Thank you, Doc. So excited. Anyway, collectors like me are going to buy cheap Guardians of the Galaxy movie figures, possibly if any of the head sculpts are good, or if the outfits could be recast into other things. But I just think this shows the lukewarm feelings over everything that Marvel is doing right now completely. The fact that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, their one success outside of No Way Home. Multiverse of Madness figures are still on the shelf as well. America Chavez, stacks of America Chavez, and it's like, I hate that when everything becomes about race and sex, me saying America Chavez isn't doing well is almost like some sort of like incitement of sexism or racism. And it has nothing to do with that. It's about the character. I don't care about any of the colors or any of the sexes, and I'm not saying any of that. I believe that female characters can sell when they're characters that we like. Certainly I've watched a ton of Ahsoka action figures sell in my lifetime, and a million Sables and Chinas, and Black Widows and Scarlet Witches and Rogues and Psylocks and Jubilees and Storms. There are plenty of characters who people love, and just really spending the time to make characters that capture people's imagination is just what's missing here. They'll do a thing, the audience rejects it, and then they just keep pushing the same thing, when really they need to try to learn from why did the audience reject this and try again. And if the audience rejects that, they learn from the combined might of the two, and they just keep learning lessons until they get something good. And then they have a pool of other characters who they can pull from, and they can try to reinvent a little when they bring them back. And now, this is, universes are made, and the beautiful reinvention of characters. So many of these things have happened in comics for years. Characters would struggle to find their place, and then all of a sudden that place was there, and they would fit into it perfectly once that place became available. And I wish I had a good example off the top of my head to give to you, but I don't at this moment. But maybe like a character like Animal Man, finding Grant Morrison, a writer who just was able to elevate everything about that book and what that character meant in a way that didn't exist until he got his hands on him. And that happens all the time in comics. Again, I wish I had more examples, but there are plenty. Let's see where we're at here. Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. Phases creates success, I guess, is still unsellable at major. Oh, yes. So their biggest successes, their toy lines are still unsellable at major discounts. So this is all Bob Iger's fault, okay? Because this guy should be looking at this. Like, if I was Bob Iger, the merch sales, I would be looking at that the hardest. Every fluctuation in merchandising sales, evaluating every single thing, what sold, what didn't, what's connecting with the audience in such a way that it makes them go out and buy things. That, unfortunately or fortunately, for those of you who don't pay attention to the toy world or the merchandising world or whatever, that is the one indicator of real passion that you can show, that the market can show you. You don't know if somebody's at home watching the movie a million times by themselves. I mean, unless it's on streaming and you're able to count it. Like, there's certain ways in which you can count some of these things and you can get a metric for some of these things. But you don't know how long they're spending fantasizing about the thing all the time. You do know how many statues have been bought and how many depictions of your character are possibly sitting on somebody's shelf right now. You do know what characters are seemingly hitting with the fans by how many of 6 characters you make, you sell a crap load of these 2. You can see very practical information in front of you from merchandising. And the fact that the dip in this shit, which I have been able to see for about a decade now, is not something that obviously they had to have been aware of it, not something that they cared about, not something that they thought was a problem, not something that they decided to correct in any fashion up into this very moment. As Disney's saying that we're going to get out of politics, and now they're making a big political thing against Elon Musk in the Twitter battle and whatnot. This is political maneuvering. This is the exact same shit that you said you were not going to do anymore. So which is it, Bob? Which is it? God damn it! This motherfucker is not good at his job. He just doesn't know what the fuck. He's a weatherman. He wants to be a weatherman. He says always what he wanted to be wanted to get up and do the thing. And there's certain things that Bob is good about and wise about. A big company should do big things. Big companies should make acquisitions and make the company stronger and bigger where it's weak. And they did a lot of good things in buying Marvel and buying. These were great things. If they could have handled these properties correctly, creatively, but he's not really capable of doing that. He's only capable of hiring people and then letting them do their thing. And he hired these really ideological, politicking type people, because he's an ideological politicking type person. He has designs to be, a political candidate in the future. It's been talked about. I think he's talked about it. And, and that obviously on the Democratic side of things. So he's been playing all sorts of games and hiring people who are into playing those similar games and similar politicking. And they're taking in this ESG money, which is all about like all this kind of social engineering through, through money. I don't know if it was Charles Schwab or one of these big heads over one of these big summits was talking about how they believe that they have to force behavior. So this is all forced behavior coming down from on high. The money trying to force behavior, trying to force culture, trying to force things. And when you try to force art, you just destroy art. Okay? It doesn't matter what your politics are, guys. When you try to force art, you destroy art. So even if you're like really like, yeah, man, good that they're forcing all these things. Like, well, be ready for a lot of terrible art for a really long time. Because that's what happens when you force what should be organic, what should be growing up organically. This is how you know the health of a brand, everyone. This. And the health of these brands and their merchandise was why Bob Iger bought this stuff in the first place. What else? Strange World, Turning Red, live action Little Mermaid. They've done nothing beyond whatever they've done, which is generally break even to lose money, and their merchandising sales is non-existent. I mean, these companies didn't put out very much stuff for something like Strange World. It wasn't tracking very well. It wasn't looking good. They didn't think it was going to be a success, and they didn't seem to make very much. Turning Red, I didn't see very much for that either, even though I think Turning Red merchandise might have done pretty well. My kids seem to like Turning Red pretty good on Disney+. Live action Little Mermaid. These live action things don't really have any merch, and it just does cause a lot of brand confusion, I think, for the characters. Christmas, second chance for some of this merchandise, maybe. I mean, maybe some of those Guardians of the Galaxy things, but I think more to be bought by people like myself and my friend Aaron than to be bought by people who are like, oh yeah, now that the prices come down, I like that movie well enough. Even though I do think people like the movie well enough, but I think it was like a closing chapter for people. It wasn't was a jumping off point. Like there's this stupid thing in comics where they'll start at number 1 to get these artificial sales increases for the new number 1, and they do it over and over and over again. And largely what it's come to be is a great jumping off point for people who are like lukewarm on a series. Like, okay, cool, I guess that wraps things up, and people just bail. I think people are bailing on this whole thing here. Additionally, though, there are more factors. If you're out there going, well, come on, it's Hasbro's fault too. It is Hasbro's fault, but Hasbro's dealing with the licensing. And who knows what they're paying for this licensing? Who knows what they're doing? They're hedging their bets, and Hasbro's been raising prices. They've been raising prices like crazy. But there's a lot of risk with these licenses. And Disney, I mean, they own all these massive things, and Disney is just kind of doing worse and worse and worse. It's my belief that the corporate think over at Hasbro is fighting against the more powerful corporate think over at Disney, and they're going, fuck the fans, man. Like if the fans want these other things, we'll make them for them, but we're going to charge them an arm and a leg because we got to make back all this money that we're laying out to Disney to get these licenses in the first place. And part of why they do that, put the risk and everything on the consumer, is also because it's the people at the bottom who get fired here. When a company like Hasbro is laying people off, the people at the tippy top of things, they remain. And anybody who's got a boss within the system is trying to appease their boss. That's part of the reason why this ESG score, whatever else corporate sort of like culture war thing has been so successful, because so many people are employed to corporations where they need to toe the line and speak appropriately and behave appropriately on behalf of their companies, and the way that the companies they work for would like them to conduct themselves. And other people are trying to get those jobs, don't have those jobs but want those jobs, are in that industry, are trying to talk to those people. They're independent, but they're still trying to speak that language and trying to appease everybody. And certainly when the great big orange man came along, it became a very divisive piece of the conversation, and an easy thing for a long time, I think, not so much anymore, to just sort of rally around and signal that everybody was on the same side who was working in all these industries, and a force of particular politics came out in real force because of this. And I mean, I've watched it in comics. I've watched it with my brother in his film career. We will, not to say like cozy up to, because me and Cody we're really genuine people. So it's really hard for us, especially our dad's a celebrity. So we're used to people like coming to us and wanting things from us. So it's hard for us to want things from other people and not feel like, I don't want to want something from you and not be offering something for you. So we're always, I think both of us have made like a similar pledge of like, we're always pledging to give like our best to anybody who will give us our time. And we'll really put ourselves out for people if we feel like we have a little bit of a bond with them. And because we look for friendships and partnerships as opposed to just partnerships. And but what happens is, we cozy up to some person who we like and they like us, and we come up with some really great thing that we want to do, and then they get fired, or they get moved, or they get promoted, thank God. But oftentimes that promotion will lead them somewhere where they can no longer do the thing that they were doing with you, or the thing that you were doing with them gets canceled, replaced, changed, parameters changed, whatever it might be, by the person directly above them. And that, I would say, is what happens like most time. There's so many gigs. I was so excited. I was almost I was like locked in with the editor to write a short story for a Vertigo horror anthology. And I was so excited. I was going to write something for DC's Vertigo. These were like, my milestones. Like I want to write for Marvel. I want to write for DC. I want to write something for Vertigo. I want to write for Image. I want to write for Heavy Metal. These were all things that I've wanted to do. I've done all those things except for Vertigo. I was almost wrote something for Vertigo. I almost wrote a bunch of different things for Vertigo here, there, but just nothing ever, stars never aligned. But the editor who was getting all these people for her horror anthology was told by her boss right before it was about to happen, these will be your writers and these are your artists. So that's it, that's the whole story over and over again. Like, these people who you might befriend or you might have jobs with, like, they get shuffled around in some way or blocked in some way, and the plan gets changed, and now you were part of that plan and you're no longer there. I mean, that's how most of the gigs that I've ever lost have ever happened. Not because of like anything that I did, really. I was just there. I did good work. They were happy. And then for some reason or another, it didn't work out. And there's like, tons of fucking stories like that. I if you're ever interested in some of those stories, if you go back in time in my earlier, maybe like first few months of my shows, I do a real long breakdown of my career and just like all sorts of the stories of going through geek culture stuff and writing comics and pitching to the big two and all the stuff, all the shenanigans that went on. I did all the things. Anyway, I love you. Thank you if you're one of my lovely people who are listening this long. We had a great month, which was really cool for me because it was just sort of telling of something where we didn't go up much in our listenership, and like our numbers were very much the same. Or actually, no, our numbers were a little bit down. And the podcast Playground, the company that I work with, we actually shifted to a new ad agency because we weren't happy with like the results we were getting. But during that month, when the numbers went down a little bit, my ad revenue, how much we made on the show, went up because even though there was less downloads, the amount of people listening all the way through, listening to the whole show, had gone up significantly. So thank you so much. I'm finally starting to hear more and more from people on like Twitter and stuff. People are finding me on Twitter and interacting with me there, and that's really awesome. Thank you so much. Keep finding me there. I'm at Coolest Geek JBS on Twitter. And if you want to follow my publishing company for King of Kings updates and new Mythic Legions reprint and Blacklight District reprint and Fucking for Our Future, the new book, which is out right now on Fund My Comics, or you can go to fundmycomics.com. Oh, no, sorry. It's fundmycomic.com/fucking. I actually got censored because of like the books, the word fucking and a couple things. I had to censor a bunch of things on the Fund My Comic page. But I was able to get away with the /fucking as the short link. So fundmycomic.com/fucking, and you can go get it on Fund My Comic. If you're not on Fund My Comic yet, or but you are on Kickstarter, next month we'll be doing that book on Kickstarter. Anyway, I'm super excited about that book. And for more updates on the other things coming out from my company, Blacklight District Studios, you can follow us on Twitter as well, which is at BLD_STS. BLD_STS. That's Blacklight District Studios. Anyway, I don't know. Do I have anything more to say about this shit? I mean, it's just like, I feel like I've covered it pretty good. Bob Iger, his Disney is affecting so much. That's such a big company. There's so many employees. It's just a matter of time before we see them downsize in one way or another, because they are on a trajectory and they do not have much in the way of hits coming. I don't know what it is they're going to do. I kind of wanted to stop talking about him for a little while and not like be getting into this anymore. But this merchandising thing, it's just so huge. It's so huge. And if you really want to know the health and temperature of a brand, check their fucking merchandising sales. I mean, really, like, it's so easy to do this in a practical way. I feel like these corporations have run away with an impractical reality because they've gotten used to being able to kind of mold society to do whatever it wants. But nowadays, independent companies can come up and do things so much better. And I think a lot of companies are eating their lunch. And it's going to be happening in the entertainment world very soon if people like Bob Iger don't get their heads out of their asses very quickly and right the ship. Anyway, that's it for today, Coolest Geeks. I'm your passionate geek culture commentator, Jesse Blaze Snider. You can write to me at jesseblaze@jessesnider.com. I love you all. Care Bear Stare. I look forward to hearing from you. I really do. Anyway, thank you for listening to my show, and I hope you will join me again next Wednesday and this coming Saturday for another ass-kicking episode of the Coolest Geek Alive. My friends, peace. You've been listening to Coolest Geek Alive with me, your host, Jesse Blaze Snider. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more excellent geek culture content. Thanks for listening.
It's my favorite part! Isn't that heavy? I'll play that! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Coolest alive! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Stay with your tribe! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Revenge of the Geeks! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Week after weeks! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Laughing with you! It's gonna be fucking awesome! And crying sometimes too! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Spelling it out! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Making you shout! I'm a genius! I got lyrics coming out me bum for days! You like that? It's a kazoo solo! I played that too! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Talking some shit! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Living your shit! My voice is fucking awesome! Food in our mouth! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Get in the mouth! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Tell all your friends! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Call right or text! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Raising the bar! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Straight to the stars! It's gonna be fucking awesome! It's starting soon! Straight to the top! And awesome! Passing the moon! It's gonna be fucking awesome! On with the show! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Ready, set, go! It's going to be fucking awesome! Fucking awesome! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Just wait! You'll see! You'll all see!
The podcast playground. Hooray!